Aquarium snails are an intriguing group of animals that we can observe in our home tanks. Some species we introduce intentionally, while we fiercely defend against others that have a bad reputation as pests. What is the truth and what is mere rumor? Are snails in the aquarium entirely bad? You'll find out in today's video. Please consider subscribing. Some species we eagerly purchase in aquarium shops, while others may inadvertently enter our tanks along with plants that we haven't quarantined and/or disinfected. Snails prefer alkaline and hard water because it provides enough building material, calcium, for their shells, which are an integral part of their bodies. Why is it worth having snails in your aquarium? Starting from the beginning, they aid in aquarium maturation. Snails like ram's horn snails, pond snails, and Malaysian trumpet snails are very hardy and prolific. Their infestations can look unsightly, but more on that later. We can utilize this during the maturation of our tank. As we know from previous video about the nitrogen cycle, beneficial bacteria need substrates for their transformations. Snail waste certainly falls into this category. These species often arrive by accident. We don't need to feed them, more on their diet later, so they cost us nothing and are much more resistant to unfavorable conditions, in example, relatively high concentrations of toxic ammonia and nitrites than fish or crustaceans. Snails and their diet, algae and debris. Most aquarium snails feed on organic matter such as dead plant parts, detritus, or algae. They do this delicately enough not to damage live plants, except for the great pond snail. They also consume leftover food that fish haven't eaten. Therefore, we can consider them part of the cleaning crew in our aquarium. Snails aerate the upper layers of the substrate. Burrowing species, mainly Malaysian trumpet snails, but also assassin snails and helmet snails, loosen the substrate as they move. This means plant roots are more effectively washed by water, reducing the chance of anaerobic zones developing in the substrate. It also makes it easier for us when vacuuming the aquarium floor. Sanitation workers. Snails like ram's horn snails and apple snails include animal protein in their diet. They will eat remnants of frozen food and even dead fish that we haven't had a chance to remove. In this way, they protect the aquarium from toxins produced during the decomposition of fish in water. In aquariums prepared for breeding fish, snails can act as sanitation workers. Healthy developing eggs are safe with them, but they will consume spoiled eggs. Moreover, snail waste is an excellent food source for protozoa, which serve as the first food for fry. Snails as indicators of water quality. When something is wrong with the aquarium water, or there's too little dissolved oxygen called hypoxia, snails tend to move en masse toward the water surface. Malaysian trumpet snails, for example, behave this way. In such situations, you should perform a partial water change as soon as possible and investigate the cause of the poor water condition. Malaysian trumpet snails forage in the substrate, and if they refuse to burrow, it may indicate the presence of toxic gases accumulating in it. Snails as an interesting addition to the aquarium. Anyone who thinks that snails slowly crawling along the glass or substrate are boring is mistaken. Each species has unique behaviors that can be a joy to observe. Pay attention to snails feeding on the glass and how they use their radula, a tongue-like organ. The breathing process of apple snails and the hunting methods of assassin snails are particularly fascinating. We also shouldn't overlook the decorative role of aquarium snails. Some have shells with interesting colors and shapes, nerites, apple snails, brotia, while others captivate with the color of their soft bodies, Tylomelania. So, where did the notion that aquarium snails are bad come from? The most common negative aspect of having snails in the aquarium is the uncontrolled growth of their population. Seeing dozens of snails covering the glass, substrate, and plants can indeed spoil the visual appeal of the tank. Additionally, too many snails result in the same issues as overstocking fish, an overload of waste products leading to a disturbance of the biological balance. This problem usually involves stowaway snails like ram's horn snails, pond snails, and Malaysian trumpet snails. Apple snails can also be problematic, but we can easily prevent their population from growing excessively. Assassin snails reproduce only when there's an abundance of food, so if they run out of other snails to prey on, they'll stop breeding. In fact, cannibalism is common among them. Species like nerites, military helmet snails, and Batman snails require brackish water for reproduction, so we aren't at risk of an infestation from them. Tylomelania and brotia are live bearers, giving birth to only 1 or 2 young at a time. snails as vectors of diseases and parasites. In my opinion, this is the greatest threat posed by aquarium snails. They can carry certain parasitic fish diseases, velvet disease, schistosomiasis, which can also infect humans, although they don't get sick themselves. This is because snails can serve as intermediate hosts for various parasites. I didn't want them, but I have them. How to naturally control snails in the aquarium? It's clear that snails are very beneficial in the aquarium, as long as their numbers are kept in check. So how do we control their population? The fundamental issue regarding aquarium snails is realizing that they will reproduce rapidly when there's plenty of food, leftover fish food, lots of plant debris and detritus, and suitable water conditions. They prefer hard and alkaline water because it provides the calcium necessary for shell building. The absence of predators that could feed on them also plays a significant role. So what can we do to prevent too many snails and limit their population? Maintain aquarium hygiene and avoid overfeeding fish. Without an unlimited food source, snails won't reproduce as rapidly. Therefore, regularly vacuum the substrate and remove debris from crevices. Feeding fish sparingly is also good practice for several reasons and benefits the entire ecosystem of your aquarium. Let others do the work. Introduce natural predators. In nature, snails have many enemies that prey on them. Meet Clea, Anantome helena, commonly known among aquarists as the assassin snail, is a great solution for both small and large aquariums. They are very voracious. Initially, you might only notice their hunting success by the increasing number of empty shells, but over time, they can eradicate other snails completely. Fish predators. Fish from the genus Leporinus and loaches. For example, clown loach, reticulated loach, dwarf loach, and pufferfish eagerly eat snails. However, this method is suitable only for large and very large tanks because you need to consider these fish's requirements. They live in groups and often grow over 10 centimeters, sometimes even 20 to 30 centimeters, like the clown loach or Leporinus fasciatus. Some cichlids, bettas, and gouramis may partially control snail populations, but snails are more of a dietary supplement for them rather than a staple. Crustacean predators. To control smaller snail populations, you can also employ crustaceans like crayfish and crabs. However, they aren't suitable for every aquarium. They may intentionally destroy plants and nip at fish fins. Baits and traps for aquarium snails. You can remove snails manually or with a net, especially when they're on the glass. Traps are also effective. Aquarium shops offer various snail traps, or you can make one yourself using a small plastic bottle with bait submerged at the bottom. Speaking of bait, vegetables work best, raw or blanched. Carrots, lettuce, fresh spinach leaves, cucumber, pumpkin, zucchini, etc. Place them in the trap or secure them on the substrate in the evening, and in the morning before turning on the lights, remove the vegetable remnants covered with snails. Repeat this nightly until the situation is under control. What to do with collected snails? Never allow them to enter the natural environment. Do not release them into ponds or rivers or even dispose of them down the sink or toilet. Native ramshorn snails can survive freezing temperatures. Some exotic snail species, like the assassin snail, are hardy enough to survive milder winters at the bottom of a water body, posing an invasive threat. Moreover, they can introduce tropical pathogens into the environment, originating from aquarium fish. It's worth looking for a local aquarist who keeps loaches, pufferfish, or other snail-eating fish. They'll be happy to receive extra food for their pets. Heavy artillery, controlling snails with chemicals. Some aquarists prefer snail-free aquariums. Let's be straightforward. Completely eradicating invasive snails is very challenging once they appear. Following the principle that prevention is better than cure, we should try to prevent them from entering our aquariums. So where do snails in the aquarium come from? They can hitch a ride on substrates, driftwood, or other decorative elements, especially if they've been used in an aquarium before. Most often, however, they arrive with plants that haven't been quarantined and/or disinfected. Even if you don't see snails, they can develop from eggs. Also, never pour into your aquarium the water used to transport fish from the store or breeder. Prevention. Methods of disinfection. Aquarium equipment and decorations, as well as new plants, should be rinsed under running water upon acquisition. If they come from a store, clean the roots of any rock wool or other material. Prepared plants should be placed in a disinfecting solution. When choosing a disinfectant, consider what you're treating. Plants have varying resistance to chemicals. Using the wrong one could damage them. Remember that all chemical methods should be applied outside the main aquarium, as they can harm the aquarium's balance. These agents negatively affect fish health, kill beneficial bacteria, and dead snails can become a source of ammonia in the water. Disinfection methods. Aquarium salt, relatively safe. Soak items to be disinfected in a warm salt solution for at least 10 minutes. Then rinse everything thoroughly under running water to remove the salt. Potassium permanganate. Use a fresh solution for disinfection. For plants, the solution should be pink. Add a few crystals to the water and mix until the desired concentration is achieved. Soak them for 10 to 15 minutes. For equipment, you can use a higher concentration. Dissolve 5 grams, a teaspoon, in 4 liters of water and immerse items for 5 minutes. Rinse everything thoroughly afterward. Caution: this substance stains heavily. Always wear gloves during handling. Potassium alum. Create a disinfecting solution with 2 or 3 teaspoons of alum per 1 liter of water. Soak plants and equipment for 2-3 days. Due to the long exposure time, the container with plants should be illuminated to prevent rotting. After soaking, rinse everything thoroughly. Commercial snail killing preparations. Use according to the instructions on the packaging. These products mainly contain copper compounds, which are highly toxic to mollusks, snails, clams, and crustaceans, crayfish, shrimp, and harmful to fish and delicate plant species. I hope this video has helped you view aquarium snails from a broader perspective. See you in the upcoming videos of Aquarium series. Thank you for your attention, and if you found this video helpful, please consider subscribing to this channel.